Hi, Gemini, Sun and Rising. Welcome to a video looking at the transits of Saturn into Pisces and Pluto into Aquarius, both occurring in March 2023. Wow, just wow. The reason I'm saying wow is not only because of those transits, but there are other things that are happening in March of 2023 that are noteworthy that I'm not going to bring up, but just know that this is a very transformational month in general, and in large part because you have these two planets that do not have very short term transits through one sign, both changing signs in the same month. So it really does speak to the turning of the tides. Um, Saturn hasn't been in Pisces for almost 30 years. For Pluto, being in Aquarius, it's been over 200 years. Actually, since the American Revolution as well as the French Revolution, during that time frame, both of these events occurred. So that gives you a little hint about what is going on. And we can, actually see even now before the official time has begun that we're seeing that rebellion of actually Pluto and Capricorn could also be the culprit for that because Capricorn rules structures, including governments, and we're seeing a lot of things happening, especially with corruption, because Pluto can be, kind of those dark forces, and also the uncovering of those corrupt forces that is, in the government and around the world. There are uprisings where people are not accepting the results of elections, and they're, in the streets, and they're not accepting whoever is the leader. And this is just going to grow when Pluto goes into Aquarius, because that is Aquarius is the sign of the collective. And Pluto can be about power. And I think about that slogan from the early 70s that John Lennon used in a song, "Power to the People." So that's just kind of like talking about it from that perspective. But let's look at how it directly impacts the chart of Geminis, both of these planets in these signs. It's important to keep in mind that this is a general reading because your, cusps of your houses where these transits will be in might be different. So, for instance, that cusp of the ninth house where Saturn has been transing in Aquarius, that might be different for each of you in terms of what degree it's in, and same with the Pluto transit. Pluto has been in Capricorn in your eighth house, and it's poised to go into your ninth house, and Saturn is poised to go into the 10th house of career. But I'm going to start with Saturn, and I just want to give like a recap of how it has been in your ninth house. And Saturn may have tested you in some way as it pertains to your faith, what you believe in. And I know that what you believe in might not be faith, it might be something very concrete. I mean, the ninth house is the God house, but it could be atheism. There might be some Gemini people who are atheists because you are intellectuals, and you might think that believing in God is childish or anti intellectual. I mean, you might think that there is, you might have a more of a Buddhistic approach to God. You know, they say that the Buddhists are atheists. I mean, I don't think that that's true. I think it's just the way that they're interpreting their attitude about God. But I don't really know all that much about Buddhism, so I might be wrong on that. But it seems a little bit silly to think that they're atheists. But whatever it is that your belief system is, something can come along and test that. And the reason sometimes people think that God is the one testing us to see if we're, really viable in terms of, what we're walking our talk or whatever. And I would say that we are tested, and I don't know if I would even say God. I wouldn't make it like God as this personal type of God who is, trying to be like a surrogate parent or something like that, like Sky Daddy, but more of a universal force and really our higher self that is connected to source energy. That is, it's kind of like I was going to say like a pop quiz to see if we're really ready to advance further on. If we've really kind of, um, learned things enough to progress, versus whether or not you deserve to, experience the higher states. It's more of like, are you prepared? And so it can run the gamut of how this may manifest for you. And for some people, this may be something more along the lines of deciding to make a commitment to get a college degree, since this can be higher learning and Saturn can be discipline. Maybe you decide to go into um, a career in academia, and for sure, somebody who is a Gemini would certainly be um, a natural for that environment and that kind of a profession. Also, when I was talking about being tested, you might have a bit of a, maybe it's a crisis of faith where, something happens that makes you think, you know what, I don't think there is a God. And, I have to say, as somebody who has gone through this transit, I can't, remember the exact years, but in recent years, and also have had Pluto going through here because, they're very close in their signs that they're transiting, that it has been very transformative for me overall, because I think that we do tend to have this kind of simplistic idea of religion, and um, even when we are delving into more sophisticated things, we can still have certain concepts that are a little bit outworn and what we need to kind of let go of. And that's the other thing about Saturn, is that it doesn't want um, any kind of excess. The ninth house, being ruled by Jupiter, can be excessive. It's about expansion, but sometimes Sagittarius and Jupiter, it's like too much of a good thing. And so, um, Gemini is certainly one of those signs that is very intellectually curious, but you are quite the dabbler yourself, where you can be interested in all kinds of subjects and you love that variety, and you could be quite versatile, but you may be kind of like a little bit shallow in your knowledge in these different areas, and you might decide to really specialize in something, or you have decided, because again, you're going to have Saturn going into your 10th house. March 7th is when Saturn goes into Pisces. And the 10th house is the house that Saturn rules. So it is the natural domain for Saturn. This can be a time of attainment, I would say, because Saturn is about delays, but eventually getting, what you want. So it could be that payoff for somebody that has kind of paid their dues, where they're finally going to see the fruits of their labor. But I think that this could actually be more labor, to tell you the truth. And you might see the fruits of your labor when Saturn is in the 11th house, because that's the house of gains. And that can be, in terms of the money and with career matters. The 10th house is your reputation. So during this time, you may solidify your reputation. You may get that certain degree, or, when I say degree, I could also mean certification. And this might have come when Saturn was in the 9th house, where the person gets their MBA or their doctorate or whatever, and then they can use that as part of their job title, whatever you call their title. And it can be gratifying if you have been working very hard and now you feel like you have that status that allows you to, feel a certain respect that is bestowed upon you. But like I said, it could be more, something that is hard work that you still have to do. And there could be even some kind of obstacles that, or restrictions that come your way for the next few years that are around the issue of career matters. But just like I was talking about in terms of studying habits, or being like a jack of all trades and the master of none, this can really help you to specialize so that you really devote your energy and focus on one thing rather than kind of being all over the place. So while it may feel restrictive, it may allow you to really pour your energy into something. And then by the end of this transit, you're able to say, wow, I really advanced by leaps and bounds because I didn't spread myself too thin. I wasn't dabbling in a whole bunch of different things. I specialized in something. 10th house can be your status, and that can be enhanced in some way. And you're gaining that respect from others, establishing yourself. This is a time to lay down foundation career-wise. So let's talk about Pluto. Pluto is going into this 9th house from the 8th. And I feel like, Pluto is a heavy no matter what. So it's not like, oh, wow, it's just going to be completely warm and fuzzy when it's in a particular house. But it can be a lot less intense than when Pluto was in your 8th house, because this is Pluto's domain, the 8th house. But by the way, I should talk about the 8th house a little bit, because Pluto ain't really going too far. It's going to 0 degrees in something of Aquarius, but then it's going to go back into the 8th. Both the 8th and 9th houses have in common a connection to spirituality. The way I would differentiate them is say that the eighth house, because that's Scorpio, is more like the occult, and that includes astrology and the tarot. It's metaphysics or esoteric types of studies, or shamanism, magic. And the ninth house is more organized religion. So to me, it's more conventional. But Pluto is the shadow work. And this is, I was just saying in another reading that because the eighth house can be psychotherapy, that I really do think that psychotherapy is a form of shadow work. And it's really about, delving into the deep recesses of our mind, especially if we feel like we have been kind of psychologically bypassing things. And I think that Gemini is a sign that does tend to do that, because you're an air sign. And the other sign that I was actually talking about this with was Libra. And, both of you are air signs, and air signs are not emotional. So anything that is emotional is probably considered suspect to you, because you think of it as irrational, and you can even find it threatening because it seems imbalanced. And I would, honestly, I think that there might be some truth to that, because it doesn't, I feel like when the more that we can be neutral or detached in life, I think that we're way better off than when we're emotional, because then we're very subjective, and we're seeing things through our lens, our own lens, but that is not the universal mind. That is just the individual. And so, or I should say, and yet, we do have to sometimes heal trauma. The eighth house can be trauma. And sometimes people that are not emotional find it hard to process their emotions, because they tend to intellectualize them, and that can be a protective measure, but ultimately it can lead to being in denial of our emotions, and they're still there, operating underneath at the subconscious level. The eighth house can be the subconscious mind. So some of you may have actually gone into therapy during this transit, and it's something that you're looking to heal from something, or you have found personal power through some kind of magical or spiritual practice. In March, when Pluto goes into Aquarius, and actually the date is going to be 3/23/2023, which is a palindrome. Forwards and backwards, the date is exactly the same. It's way cool. And Pluto will be going into your ninth house. So when Pluto goes into the ninth house, this can give a real sense of obsession, or at least strong tendency to be transformed by spiritual ideas. You may find yourself like really drawn to traveling to a certain country, because this is the area of long distance travel. And it may not be something that is just like for some kind of lighthearted jaunt. This may be something that, and who knows, it might not be something that you set out doing specifically to transform your life, but once you get there, you become transformed by this environment that you're in. And transformation to me is ultimately a spiritual thing, because it can raise your vibration. It can like open you up. I mean, that's what the ninth house is really about, is expansion. And it opens you up just in terms of geographical locations, but also in an internal kind of a way. And for some people, they study something that has that effect as well. That's very transformative. So it could be a religious belief, but it could be a, a subject that you're studying in at university as well. There's a healing aspect to Pluto, so you may find yourself either being healed by a particular philosophy, religion, or that you are helping others in this way. I would, I would say that the ninth house is a life coach kind of a house, because your house, the third house to me, is just the overall house of the mind. But the ninth house to me is the higher mind. And with Pluto, it's all about transformation. So you've probably know about this genre of self-help and new age that's about transformation coach, or whatever you want to call it, even manifestation coach, or manifestation mindset, transformational mindset, like the Tony Robbins type of people. And I would put that in the camp of the ninth house, or if you have Pluto transiting the third house, that can also be the case. But there's this thing about the power of positive thinking. That's a perfect analogy of what that could mean, or example of what that could mean. So if you have any interest in that area, this may be something that you just become obsessed with and absorb all of these teachings. Napoleon Hill, all of these people from the past, maybe current mindset coaches, and then you become one yourself. If that's something that is appealing to you, watch out for any kind of spiritual teacher who you get involved with that could be kind of like almost like a cult leader, because Pluto is about power and the ninth house is about religion. And sometimes this can mean somebody they might be very charismatic, but they have a tendency to be quite controlling. And you could fall under their spell if you're not careful. Um, what else could this be? You may find a personal philosophy that really helps you to step into your own power. And, ultimately, a lot of people focus on kind of the more challenging aspects of Pluto, but it can also have some life changing, life transforming elements to it that can vastly improve your life. So, your life may, by the time that Pluto leaves that house, you may see that your life has changed completely. And I would say for the better. And because this is a trine to your sun or your ascendant, this is going to be a very cooperative and healing transit for you. So that's what I have for you, Gemini. I hope that this resonated with you. If you would like a personal reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.